Right, good evening. I'm Sven and this is Stefan to my left, and we are very happy to present for you tonight. We are the founders of Studio Tillack Knöll. We are a design practice that concerns itself with the visual and spatial aspects of communication. We design exhibitions and wayfinding, as well as visual identities, books, and digital experiences. We do that for a variety of clients involved in architecture, art, science, commerce, and culture. A driving force behind our work is the interaction and collaboration with and for other human beings. And besides creating our visual output, we enhance our design practice by editing, writing, coding, and teaching. This is us. Stefan and I met in an art academy here in Stuttgart on the first day of our studies back in 2010. Since then, we had been loosely collaborating to join forces in 2018 and make the studio happen and make this a full-time thing. We are currently joined by our team member, Johannes Hucht, who works for and with us for 3 days a week. Our day-to-day work is the starting point from which we confidently emerge with holistic design concepts for the production of identities and atmospheres that hopefully have long-lasting effects. We try to do that in different phases that constantly evolve out of each other. That means we are designing and prototyping, we are communicating, and towards the end, we are adjusting and finishing. The finished product tries to manifest itself through its visual and haptic surface. The goal of the practice is to reach new depths and to deep dive, when possible, distinctive, tangibly, and intellectually. We tried to separate a few parts of what we're actually doing. We're starting with identities because we're thinking that identities are a great endeavor to test out these depths we're trying to dive in. A striking project that we had just finished a month ago was an art exhibition that took place right here, one of the biggest European construction sites there is to date. That's Stuttgart main station, with cost estimates that go through the roof and very long delays in the building process. It's a hot topic in local politics, and it's not really the most expected venue for an exhibition. That is, of course, the exhibition wasn't set up outdoors, but rather indoors and down below in the vast and empty concrete halls of that new station and the tunnels that go there. For 3 days in January, about 400 people had the chance to see the exhibition called Solid Transitions, transitioning as an urban planning, but also the construction site becoming a white cube and soon enough, in a few years, a train station. So to fully understand the setting and the agenda the curators had, we put on our hard hats and we went down below. This is Johannes, by the way, painting some funny sketch on this car, like a little finger drawing. Right, so we were blown away by the vast space and the spatial gestures. So we started documenting, trying to find ideas. 14 artists in total, as well as an architecture studio, them in charge of the scenography, that took part in this project. We only had about 4 weeks time in total to shape the whole thing. So we got things rolling pretty fast and started off with the word mark itself. Originally, we had planned on taking the images ourselves, but the project team was then enlarged by a photographer, Stuttgart photographer Victor Brigola from Merz Academy, who supported the project by taking the photos with his middle format camera. Here's a little selection of those. One of our favorite images is this one. It's a tunnel where one of the artists would install an oversized MRI with flashing lights and buzzing sounds. So here we are, probably around 20-25 meters below the surface. For the identity, we originally planned to not become too visual about the exhibition space itself, but the client asked if it was possible to include it, since not many people had seen the inside of the new station yet. And so we started off with more maybe an icon approach and typographic, and then included the images. And finally, the lower right is then what was the outcome, or more like this. We ended up with this as the final result. We have 2 parts of the tunnel that are back-to-back shots. The arch then was applied as a second layer, and together with a cloud of smoke that was also part of the exhibition, we could then efficiently transfer that into an animated version for social media, which you'll see on the right. We also made a website. The website then gave an in-depth look on the artists and their work, of course. And since the exhibition is over now, you can also see the exhibition documentary itself. Yeah, here are a few shots that you can see on the website. Every of the artists and what they did is put on the website. There was a brochure too. We used introductory texts and of course the photography that Victor took to show where the works would take part, and when people went down into the tunnel they would get the brochure to see, and also as a little souvenir, so that they after they went up again they could think about what they saw and read about the artistic positions. In the next couple of weeks, we will apply for state funding to produce another publication on the transformation of the central station, as well as the art project itself. So fingers crossed that that could happen. We definitely look forward to that. Another identity shaped is the municipal gallery in the town of Villingen-Schwenningen, which is just on the east edge of the Black Forest here in southern Germany. Here we see a poster for the exhibition Auf nach Japan, or Off to Japan, that was held last summer. The gallery itself used to be an entrepreneur's villa in the 70s and 80s and then remained empty until it got reopened in the 2010s. Off to Japan, or Auf nach Japan, shows art of the wealthy traveling artists in the early 1900s that lived a life between desire and reality. The European artists traveled to Japan as the country of their desires for the first time, only to understand that things wouldn't really be as they dreamed they were. So prints and paintings, also early photographs, were exhibited against the backdrop of the Japanism at that time. For the identity itself, we used the old Microsoft system font Simsun, a serif font family that's often used in Asia when the Latin alphabet is used. You might have seen it before. The kerning is almost monospaced, but not really, and some things look a little off. On the one hand, it gave it a characteristic appearance. On the other hand, it was a total mess, but a lot of fun to work with. For the topics of the exhibition, the type was then often aligned vertical to resemble the type orientation. And on thin layers of fabric, we printed exhibition texts. Together with a team of carpenters, we produced a relatively inexpensive exhibition furniture that was then set up in the gallery. There was also the common traveler's route was printed on a wallpaper. And of course, here we see more typography, this time explanatory texts in wooden frames. To also give the visitors something at hand, the exhibition was accompanied with a brochure that explained the motives and techniques showed common cliches that were used in the artworks, such as young women, opium pipes, geishas, nature in particular, just all these things that the artists painted. We had an associating website as the exhibition's digital companion. It showed the artworks, the texts could be accessed with QR codes while standing in the exhibition and visiting it. Another exhibition, Utopie Heimat, or Home a Utopia, was held last autumn while the municipality had their 50th anniversary. While celebrating values of inclusion and diversity, the gallery provocatively questioned the presence of these values and showed artworks that express the longing after home, or as we say in German, Heimat. We used the striking green spot color. We used it throughout all media, especially on the website, where, as like in the Off to Japan exhibition, it showed the artworks that were present. And lastly, we want to show an older exhibition we did for them, Digital ist besser, or Digital is better, where we quote a famous German band called Tokotronic. The exhibition showed artworks that combine analog and digital techniques to ask questions about the digital coexistence. For this exhibition, you can see we used the Univer typeface and gave it a digital appearance. Univer is used by the city, and we tried to adapt it a little to our needs. Besides different tools for the exhibition, we see the website in the upper left corner, as well as a moving poster on the right, together with static applications such as magazine ads and a banner on the bottom. Right. Dolce far niente is the sweetness of doing nothing, and that's the credo of a Stuttgart bar called Paulo e Marco that is providing excellent quality in service and menu. It was opened in September 2021. As they say, the bar was set in stone and it set a new standard for modern bar interior in Stuttgart. Apparently it's internationally renowned in various architecture magazines, and we contributed the identity to the newly established bar. Let's take a look inside. That's the interior of the place, and that's not a rendering. It really looks like this. It's crazy. It always looks like as if you're standing in like a computer scene, but that's really what it looks like. So we were really happy to provide the branding. The logo is a reminiscence of old Italian craftsmanship and resembled the brand story with influences of long summers, mid-century Mediterranean heritage, as we try to virtuously use specially drawn ligatures to reinforce the reference to those times. Next, we foremost designed a brand book that shared a fictional story of Paulo e Marco, two bartenders that fled the declining Italian economy of the mid-20th century. They set up a shop in Stuttgart, this bar, only to reunite with her beloved employee Tati that had worked for them before, who had just opened a cafe around the corner. The booklet, printed in blue and pink, was not only handed out in the opening weeks of the bar, it was as well used as promotional material among the guests further on. And of course, subsequently, the design of Paulo e Marco was applied to various printed matter. The centerpiece of every bar is its menu book, especially with the attention to detail that was provided here. And that's what we tried to adapt to this. Since this was a year and a half ago, over the last summer, we tried to further develop this into a little fold-out poster menu to also challenge us a little bit. Which was then also printed and laid out in the bar. In a sub-branding, we also crafted the identity for the bar's very own coffee roast, Mozzafiato, and that's where the fun comes in. Not that other projects aren't fun, but we always try to make space for ideas we fiddle around with, besides working on actual projects, and sometimes the fun then turns into something real. That is how the logotype and/or typeface for Mozzafiato was created. We used our very own variable typeface Pepe for that. Pepe is a variable font that combines ideas of a geometric typeface together with inspiration of Italian 80s design among the likes of Memphis. The weight axis of the typeface influences whether the consonants are bold and the vowels are thin, or vice versa. You can see it on the top. That's like the most extreme on the thin side. Then in the middle, you see something that's like rather in the middle of the axis. And down there, it's like the other way around. No, actually, the top and the bottom are the same. Whatever, but you get the feeling. It's like you can switch it around. Yeah, here we can see it. Nice. And yeah, one of the little features that makes Pepe special is the vast number of ligatures that are available. Here, only a few that you can see, but they are also variable, and yeah, it's fun dragging the slider around. While Benny and Marcus, the owners, asked us if we could provide a little logo and various applications for their coffee brand, we couldn't really resist to use Pepe. So besides the packaging itself, the bar uses their mozza cups, which you can see here. It's funny because it says Fiato then on the saucers. So it's when you pick it up, then you can see it. Also, last summer, we designed a backprint for a t-shirt. There was the idea of a totem that stuck around, which is why the brand's new stickers are also featuring some very special shapes. They were just produced the other week, so bear with us that that's only a digital resemblance of what it really is. Another side project that turned into something real is the design of Naughty Sons, a sans serif typeface that was used by Nam Huynh, Hans-Jörg Seidler, Levin Stadler, and us for the identity and signage of the art association we're part of. The association, called Kunstverein Wagenhalle, is located at Stuttgart's Nordbahnhof, which is the North Station. So Nordi is a cute short version of that. But also the cool kids say Nordi, so we thought we could use that too. In close proximity of the studio, we set up a signage system to mark the territory of the Kunstverein. It's the professional home port for over 100 artists here in Stuttgart. And since 2004, the Wagenhalle has been a unique production facility for all sorts of creative endeavors, painting, music, photography, architecture, you name it. The main building is a former train depot, which was used for all sorts of patterns. So this is why we used all sorts of patterns and sign language that's usually used in traffic and locomotive travel as like to apply another layer to the signage system. And we also used it for the branding of an open doors weekend in 2021. But last but not least, in one of the merry quarantines between 2020 and last year, we also made the typeface variable, at least a little bit. Additionally to the summer bold cut that was introduced and used in the identity, we adapted the characteristics to thin as well as italic cuts. Consultation on this project was done by the great Nolan Paparelli, maybe you know his font face Everett, who helped to raise Naughty Sons to a new level. It was really good to talk to him, to Zoom with him, and to show the progress of the typeface. And of course, that's something where Zoom actually makes total sense, and to share all these things. But yeah, collaboration is one of the things, like speaking of raising things to a new level. We are really fan of collaborating because we feel that it can help projects to thrive and become bigger and better. Depending on what the project needs, we include specialists and like-minded designers. We include friends and colleagues. When working in a small team like us, bringing in a substitute player helps us to gain momentum. We have a few rules for that, though. It needs to be clear that if we collaborate and cooperation is close, it needs to be fruitful and respectful. We want to be on eye level with collaborators and also with clients. One of these very fruitful endeavors was working on the anniversary issue of The Opera, a magazine about classic and contemporary nude photography. Here we see some type application we used on the book's jacket. Being the anniversary issue, we wanted to turn the 11th outcome of the magazine into something special, a retrospective book about the first 10 issues of the series. And since we had worked with editor Matthias Straub before on different projects, we knew that there was a mutual trust on decisions, which were about the content and the design, and that we could openly communicate and discuss things very openly. The book itself makes use of the 5 chapters of the classical opera, which is exposition, complication, climax, the retardation, and the conclusion, which is why we have classical layouts such as this that are opposed to a more drastic use of images while the book progresses. The book tries to illuminate different aspects of nude photography, different approaches on the image section, as well as techniques. As the book progresses, we then see full bleed images, as well as double spread images. And of course, the opera started in 2012, and it still stands for a differentiated view on nudity. Perspectives and approaches have changed since then, and the way the human body is perceived is undergoing constant changes. The thing that remains as undoubtful and yet powerful is the beauty of life and the love for the people we share the world with. In the latter part of the book, the appendix, Matthias honors the dedication of each artist with a personal text contribution that explains the connection to the series of The Opera. We had subsequently had the chance to show the book in Stuttgart as well as in Paris at Paris Photo. It was very different both times. In Stuttgart, we were at a little gallery called Galerie Kernweine. And here you see Steffen talking. That was in early December about The Opera, probably saying something very similar to what I'm talking about right now. Another ongoing and close collaboration is the work with Stuttgart artist Ann-Kathrin Müller. Since 2016, we have the chance to accompany her on the search for images that question Western individuals and their relationship to the world as consumerism, or as she states. Inside her work, she examines the role of photography. She's reflecting on the question of how art can make knowledge about history accessible and how pop cultural narratives can be critically reviewed, which leads to very different mediums and works. First of those was her postgraduate work, the Exposition, that consisted of a 32-page book, among other things. We worked on that while still being enrolled ourselves. A follow-up project was Szenarien unter freiem Himmel, or loosely translated, Scenarios Under the Open Sky. In 2017, Ann-Kathrin had just been awarded a scholarship and exhibition from the Stuttgart Art Museum, and it was time to also here set the bar higher once more. The 250-book exhibition was then published by herself. Her works, such as this image as part of the series she shot observing geothermal activity in northern Italy, were yet again accompanied by a text, this time by Stuttgart author Judith Engel. And we, in the end, realized that we were becoming more certain and more confident about how to work with her work. So that is why in 2020, we started working on yet another book, again, in collaboration with Judith. Das Signal, or The Signal, was published by our dear colleagues Edition Taube from Munich, and it was only finally realized last May due to COVID that challenged the project's outcome in between. It's the result of another close collaboration, resulting in a book that is bound inside out, as well as the inner pages being Swiss bound. And this time we tried to be even more radical with her work, doing something we wouldn't have thought that was possible in previous collabs, going full bleed with her images. We were really happy that also Ann-Kathrin trusted us and encouraged us towards this new approach, like a new step in using her work. The images and texts tell the story of a geophysicist that lives on a post-Soviet geological station in eastern Germany. The text is set as research results look like. On the left side of the layout is a continuous linear, such as those from the recording devices of seismic activity that run continuously. So sometimes there is no activity, resulting in empty pages. Ann-Kathrin visited the station herself and told us that the actual people working there at the station have to come in on, say, bank holidays to fill up the printer's paper trays. We really liked the fact when she told us that. Being actually published this time, we also made a step towards internationalization and gave a compressed version of images and the text translated to English as an 8-page inlay in the back of the book. So there you see the text very compressed and also the images in like smaller size. Somewhere in between those projects, we started working on our website and since then constantly iterated the site and the way the works are shown. While in 2018, we had a strong grid-like approach that showed the works, we exchanged that over the time with a more art-directed way of doing things, meaning we built the tools that every project could be built up differently, resulting in different images and font sizes. We always try to code the designed websites in-house because we believe that short ways inside of a process are essential for the project's outcome. And ultimately, it just feels very nice, and it's nice to know that design and development is done under the same roof. A yet completely different, but another long-term cooperation is not only with a very certain client, the German Foundation of Architects, but also with a friend and colleague of ours, Antonia Terhedebrugge from Berlin-based Studio Terhedebrugge. The Association of German Architects is offering the award Die Jungen Hugos, or the Young Hugo, named after famous German architect Hugo Hering for architecture students. Their aim is to give the young guns of architecture the opportunity to present their work and to engage in a discourse about the social relevance of planning design. We came up with a rather bold identity, a loud typeface, as well as a colorful exhibition. Morgendämmerung, meaning a new dawn to shape new tendencies in architecture, was the topic of the exhibition. The exhibition space features interchangeable configurations of mirrors and lighting, so we tried to use all that to create a striking exhibition. In the very same exhibition space, we had designed another exhibition just 6 months earlier about a very different topic, an urban planning symposium from 1987 and its ideas for Stuttgart's bright future, as people thought back then. April 87 or April 1987 showed ideas of internationally renowned participants of urban development and city planners in downtown Stuttgart. Their concept, as well as their sketches and designs, were set right next to newspaper articles from the same time. And the exhibition itself became a striking time capsule because most of the great ideas were never realized. And of course, we want to show you ICT2 November, a month-long architecture festival organized by the association. It spreads and instills an interest in architecture and its social relevance to dedicated citizens. Over the years, numerous architects, studios, and architectural practices have participated in giving talks, lectures, and valuable insights, as well as elaborated opinions during discussions. We usually design a brochure that shows the program schedule for the whole month, as well as designing and then coding interactive experiences on the website that brings everything together. And of course, posters. Here, for the inaugural edition in 2016, the brand's core is a sunny yellow circle to bring some warmth and happy thoughts to the German November colds. 2017 was the second edition, transforming it into something more, using photography as another layer, as well as transforming the sun into the welcome drink on the festival's first evening, or maybe into the drink with the pill of aspirin on the morning after, seated in the middle. In 2018, we were able to go even further and more bold with the posters. On the left side, you see a moving poster version of the calendar poster. The right side is then the announcement poster for the evening. In 2019, it got us building our own architecture out of given details of famous Stuttgart buildings that are in and around city center to build up those two posters, the identity that evolved around it. In 2020, also ICT2 November came to a halt. The association was then doing walks throughout the city, showing architecture, but we could happily pick up in 2021 again. This time, the alignment of the festival leaned more towards city centers and shopping streets, slowly transforming into something new. That also led us to bring supersized graphical elements of the identity into the public space. Since 2019, we have the pleasure to work on a number of scholarships and prizes awarded by the city of Stuttgart, this time together with our studio neighbor and friend Nam Huynh. In 2019, we kicked off things for Kompositionspreis, an award that recognizes creativity and talent in the field of new classical music and composing. Over the years, the prize also transformed itself, but it's always combining a graphical approach with something technical, such as these gradients. And then, as you see, the type is composed in between. The Hans van Vleuten Scholarship for Literature recognizes projects that were done by co-authoring. So usually two writers are coming together. Here's a flyer for the theater piece, Much of Sounds. And of course, also the last iteration for the piece, Electrical Jungle. If you look really closely, you can read Electrical Jungle in the texture of the stone in the middle. 2020 also had the 250-year jubilee of Georg Friedrich Wilhelm Hegel and Friedrich Hölderlin, two intellectual giants of the 18th century. Apparently, they were connected with the city of Stuttgart during their lifetime and in their work, which made the city celebrate. The wordmark on the lower left was done by graphic designer Ina Bauer here from Stuttgart, that was commissioned from the city as well. You see the final outcome of the poster here, but originally we had imagined the project to be more like this approach. We wanted to show their free spirit, wanted to show the sky and then the shape of a window, but the design was rejected by the client for looking too sacred, as they say, if I remember correctly. So we then tried to resemble a look that, or we then went for a look that resembled more essays and drafts, like different sheets of paper. Although we got the feeling that the front page on the left had something mystical that we wanted to follow and to elaborate on, which is why we ultimately ended up with these drafts from which the client picked the left. This all happened in February and March of 2020, so it kept us busy during COVID and the first lockdowns here in Germany happened. We were really glad that the city didn't cancel the project itself, although most of the talks and concerts were postponed or didn't even happen after all. The booklet, which you can see here, resembles a capital H once you open it and browse. And as you might already seen, architecture seems to be a sweet spot that keeps being part of our work. A project we want to show you is this pavilion that was part of the Federal Garden Show in Hellborn happening in 2019, or more so what we did for it. 10 swings and 20 flat screens were used in this multimedia installation called Hellborn in Motion. And we provided the motion content. That means the animations and the interviews of local celebrities. We had to make sure that the content was visible on a moving yet swinging screen, something we weren't really sure if that actually worked. So we had to go into our prototyping facility, do some research, again with Nam Huynh, as well as Stuttgart videographer and friend Moritz Hahn. And we had to work overtime to deliver these lab-like results that you can see here. This was the outcome in total. Here you see the pavilion and people actually using it. Right. To this date, we still really like the animated flowers that were one of the outcomes of the project. The flowers were also shown at the first edition of Demo Festival in 2019. Here we also see an installation in the dark. Additionally to the 10 swings, there were also 2 projectors that were projecting on the floor, and it was actually, you were able to also show graphic and motion content down there. Another project we want to show you, we were asked to provide wayfinding to this newly built parking garage. It's a very special one because in a newly emerging neighborhood in the north of Stuttgart, this parking garage doesn't only store cars, but it also stores and generates solar energy and provides energy for the neighborhoods and its inhabitants. While the basic construction was already done, we had to find ways to apply our typography on top of the given, which means we tried to respect the sizes of the windows, the concrete walls, and so on. We tried to use the given construction parts as a grid that we worked on, which led to this use of stencil typography. We also, on the walls, used the concrete cones that you can see here painted in red as a grid that would help us to place huge monospace type inside of this newly emerged grid. As just said before, the cones they were painted for this occasion, and they helped us to align our information to the wall or on the wall. On top of that, we drew isometric visualizations of the garage's levels in the same style. And to finish off the signage and to give it a little more personality, we also added facts about the garage, the neighborhood, energy production, as well as consumption in and around the neighborhood, so that people would actually use the parking garage. They could learn something new every day. In another signage project, we want to show the Kultur- and Kongresszentrum Liederhalle, a venue for conferences, meetings, and concerts that's based in the center of Stuttgart. Liederhalle itself has 5 halls and more than 6,000 seats available. It's internationally renowned for its acoustic and is an important venue for Stuttgart, for the Stuttgart region, as well as southern Germany. Rebuilt after the Second World War and of course renovated over time, Liederhalle consists of a vast amount of commissioned architectural art that artists added over the years. As you can see, the wall in the background with the textures, together with the blue ceiling and the LED light strips that the architects proposed, we needed to find a way that the signage would add to all of this and not work against it. So that would actually like being put up on top of what was already there. The signs that we came up with like aluminum metal signs in a copper color. We tried to add to the festive yet graceful dark blue and keep a noble touch with the copper. The signage was set in Regola Neue by our friends Formula Type from Udine in Italy. In the entrance area of the building, a giant LED screen with 3 meters height and 16 meters length was installed. And to display welcoming gestures, the train or traffic schedule or news headlines. This was put up. When we took photos, we used it to show motion type, but when the Liederhalle is actually open, they show different things. Outline pictograms were introduced, and we also used big outline typography to indicate the level the visitors were on. We like the idea to cut off the lower or the higher level numbers to give it like an elevator feel, so that you can see like you're in the fourth level, but third is down and so on. While Liederhalle has very complex architecture, it always creates some surprising appearances of the signage, when every now and then you can see a room name or the entrance markers reflecting from the glass railing, such as here. Then to yet another completely different topic, self-initiated projects. 2 projects we want to show you. As started earlier, we enhance our design practice with editing and writing. The first project comes from the establishment of large number of small and independent printing houses that over the last 15 years installed Riso printers, which led to a revival of risography. Artists and designers from all over the world have installed the Riso in their studios to produce small print runs inexpensively and to be independent of large printing houses, basically. Smaller publishers in Latin America still print exclusively on Riso for grounds of cost. Working with the risograph since 2012 as a tutor for the Institute of Book Design and Media Development at Stuttgart State Academy of Art and Design, I acquired a lot of information about risography. I would print with students and supervise the machines. So I started writing down the knowledge I had after meeting people in Maastricht in 2016 at the Jan van Eyck Academy for Magical Riso, which is a biennial risography art and text symposium. And the book, Explore Riso Low-Tech Fine Art, is then the outcome of this. It explains the printing process as well as risography as a whole. In the book, topics like color, paper, the file preparation, printing, and then the processing are explained. Explore Riso also appeared in the first year of the Discovered series of Spectre books, and it was generously supported by the Institute of Book Design and Media Development, endorsed by Professor Uli Klus. The book itself shows the printing technique and its machines, of course, but it also shows the heritage, such as the electric tattoo machines from the 1800s. We see its predecessor, mimeography, and none other than mimeo legend Erwin Bloch was invited to Stuttgart. I invited him to talk about mimeography and show the trusty mimeo machines you can see on the right side here. Despite this, the book gets technical. A vast part of the book is dedicated to the printing on the Riso machines and setting up PDFs to do so. Thus, the book is it filled quite a substantial gap, because most books at the time were just about Riso aesthetics and not about printing. There was topics as curves, levels, color thresholds, and of course, the primitive printing process has a huge color spectrum and creates interesting optical effects. Due to the means of spot colors and of course screening, which gives it always like a homemade look. And that's exactly what we want to show here. Therefore, there's like a in-book brochure that is removable, as you can see. And for your own viewing pleasure, the original Riso prints are included. Not only swatches and test patterns such as this, but also like own artist prints that combine these watches with photography. And then we invited a vast group of artists to take part in this, starting off with Blex Bolex, the Rizzo Legends Corners from South Korea, Hansi van Halem, fellow Academy alumnus and incredible illustrator Kati Silagi, Academy professor and silkscreen mastermind Patrick Thomas, as well as local hero illustrator Ben El Halavani, or El Bebe Grande for short. A website displays the whole content of the book in German and English for free, and it offers color profiles that separates images in 1, 2, 3, or 4 color multi-channel files. So you can then take the files and just go to your risograph and print. Another book that was self-initiated is Apollo 11, Man on the Moon, the Visual Archive. It shows the NASA's image archive of the space mission, and it was released shortly after the 50th anniversary of the mission. The special cellophane dust jacket gives the book a haptic, technical, yet synthetical feel. The introduction, as well as Stefan's preface, explains the situation of the Cold War America of the 60s and obviously also of the space race. The book is set in 3 parts. It shows the astronauts in training, the mission itself, and of course the heroic images that the 3 crew members brought back with them. We have the liftoff using quotes to go throughout the book. And for this 3rd part, printed on silver with black paper with a silver color, we inverted all the images and printed them to resemble the Rousseau plates that were used by them to store images. Yeah, we retouched the pictures one by one, which was a demanding task with the hundreds of images they shot on the Hasselblad camera. We are, of course, also showing the first steps on the moon as the climax of the book, knowing that these pictures have been previously published numerous times before. We wanted to present the images in a way that people hadn't seen them before. Both books, Explorizo and Man on the Moon, were awarded as 2 of the most beautiful German books in 2021 and are, as we just found out yesterday, out of print, which is an amazing feeling. It's crazy. So, right, what's next? After all of this, what's next for the studio? We are happy to announce, to show our involvement with a newly emerged publishing practice called Cookbooks that was founded by also a fellow Academy alumnus, Sabine Kastner. In their first book that we then also just designed recently, they are showing the Hegemonie Temple, which is a case study house in Berlin-Wedding that shows, despite a housing crisis, it's actually possible to build a relatively affordable house when building it around the principles of a glass house. So in this publication, we have an interview with architect Christian Boris that is printed in silver. And after that, we see the core of the book, that is a 16-page photo essay about the house. They took the images themselves and is then concluded and put together. The book will be very soon available at Cookbooks. And last but not least, what's also next for us is, you might have heard or seen that we will be giving a workshop for international in late March, early April. We also very much looking forward to that. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and thank you for listening.
That was incredible. Yeah, thank you for taking us through that. That was really incredible work for us to see. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, it was really nice to see kind of, I guess, how you seem to blend sort of both traditional and then more innovative styles of graphic design within your work, and it feels very multidisciplinary, which is lovely. So yeah, I guess we can open up and maybe have a few questions. Sure. Somebody have?
I mean, I love the fact that you revolve so heavily around Stuttgart, which is like in like, I don't know, this sort of evolving it through its like exhibition spaces, it's like this industrial estates, and just, I don't know, just keep it ever changing and ever growing. which is really interesting. Have you thought about, I don't know, is there, I guess, where did that come from? I guess, did you study? Did you guys mention that you studied in Stuttgart or?
We studied there, and at some point we were like, are we moving to Berlin like everyone else? And,
yeah,
jump into the Shark Tank and we're probably going to drown there. And I'm a small town dude. I'm just around the corner from Stuttgart. It's like 7,000 people living there. So I thought, like, well, if he's willing to stay with me, then I'll be uncool and do the uncool thing. I mean, we are very interested in architecture and working with architects. And the good thing is that I think there's 1,500 or 2,000 studios, architectural firms here in the city. It's more than the whole of France. So, well, business-wise, this makes sense just to stay here and like knock on each door every now and then. So yeah, that's yeah.
Something I was going to ask is with your work, what's really interesting, I think, whilst it's very kind of got a lot of traditional principles within the design, there's obviously a real sense of kind of digital and innovation and a kind of a mixing and blending of those things. How do you see, I guess, future technologies, I guess, impacting your work, or you using it more within your work, or moving to a different space with your design at all?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we're looking at the AI things with, like, I don't know, a little bit of anxiety. Like, you don't want to be that person who says like, oh no, the internet's not going to be a big thing, or the personal computer is not going to be used in our design profession, right? You don't want to be that person, but on the other hand, we know about the ethical dilemmas. We have a lot of illustrator friends who are like, I don't know, they're not so keen about these kind of technologies because they're not regulated. On the other hand, you have to keep up with them. So every now and then, I'm following certain people on Instagram and be like, oh fuck, sorry, oh flop, I hope I don't have to be involved with that. And yeah, we're just trying to keep that low. We know that a lot of people come to us for the analog things, like the proper printing and the proper, I don't know, finishing and that kind of knowledge. So we try to keep that up, try to do the other stuff, and just hope that we can like maneuver through it without using AI that much. I don't know. This might be ignorant in time, so maybe this is going to age very badly.
Like milk.
Yeah, like milk. But yeah, I mean, the good thing is about that area that we're situated is that, for example, Nam, he's very into 3D graphics and into finding out about AI. So, I mean, there's a lot of advantage sitting next to him and be like, hey, tell me something about that. And then he's like, yeah, he's just really into sharing. So we're lucky about that. Besides that, he's a really nice bloke and we like to get beers together. But we try to keep it up. We try to keep up with it. I mean, Sven more than myself. I'm really old guy. I might not look that old, even though but I mean, Sven's coding and animating and everything. So that's really helpful throughout the projects. And maybe I'm just the bad guy sitting next to it being like, I hope this is not going to be any part of our job.
I think, yeah. I feel like every designer is hoping it doesn't go the way that we think it's going to go, but we'll see, I guess.
I mean, we've recently had the discussion that whenever, I mean, if AI is taking off like these painstaking things to do that you don't want to do, like photoshopping photos, or I mean, doing the in German you call it Flattersatz, like if you have text that needs the right alignment at the end, right? So if you don't have to do that by adjusting the spacing and everything, yeah, that'd be great. I'm happy to involve it. But if like we're getting obsolete because everybody thinks that, I mean, they already think that probably that designers are not really necessary and just like a pain to the budget. So then this is not something very cool. But for the daily tasks, yeah, I just saw this ad that, yeah, that AI can like be a project manager. So that might be something you're looking into, because I think that project managers are, I mean, they're really, they are. You have to compensate them roughly because really good, because they're doing amazing work. So I have to walk around for a studio, but yeah. Shout out to all the project managers that are there. Yeah, we haven't had one yet, so once we're into that, that's not going back anytime soon. But yeah.
How big is your studio? Is it just the two of you, or do you take three?
We're currently 3 people. Last year, usually over the summer, we also fill an intern position. So it's then the maximum is 4 people, like so far.
Amazing. How long have you guys been going on for? How many years?
Well, officially since 2018.
wow.
I mean, we know each other since 2010 and have been working while studying. But then you always ask yourself, okay, is this like real work? If you do like a little project every now and then next to studying. But I mean, yeah, you know, we also live together, and I guess we know the quirks of the other person quite well.
Nice. Amazing.
We've probably been through all stages of friendship, right? Like working together, studying
denial.
together. So that helps a lot. And
Okay.
I mean, we're just free because we were always like at this point where we thought we should be growing, like we had big lines, and then something happened, like COVID, and after COVID it was inflation, and after inflation it was the Ukraine war. I mean, it's devastating. And it also had an impact on our projects because there was like a lot of big signage projects coming up, and then you have the inflation on building materials. So the first thing that a client is scratching is the necessity of going from A to B. Because I mean, before the buildings, I mean, you can't scratch the architect or the building industry because then you have no building and you don't need signage. So it makes sense to get rid of us in the first place. So yeah, that's why we were like, okay, let's just keep it low. And then we had like a few interns, and at some point we were like, oh, maybe it's good to be that small. Without a project manager, we'd be lost. So, yeah. So far, we have to figure out if being bigger is better, or if staying smaller also means that we have smaller projects, but more time to work on them. We're undecisive about that so far.
And it's really cool that you guys do a lot of things, coding, animation, all in-house, which is that something that has like always ran with from the start in 2018 till now? So that always been
I would say pretty much. I was back then focusing maybe a little more on book design while studying, but also I think I designed what's designed, but I wrote my first website in 1998, being 12 years old. And since then I had always had like a sweet spot for coding, but that doesn't make me a great coder. I just maybe know how to put things together. I'm pretty positive that there are far more skilled people out there that are probably also quicker and better, but it somehow, with like Stefan's maybe studying that was very like visually driven, combined to something that can actually find solutions for a lot of problems, and to actually like do something, or maybe have like a vast scope of things we can take care of. And I think then while studying, I don't know, I got in touch with like 3D programs, a little Cinema 4D here and there, checking out student licenses and all of that. So yeah, it just got more and more, which also helped to now shape a focus or something. Yeah, maybe all the tools that the studio can offer. So I think it has always been like this, that we are trying to have this like generalist approach of things. But of course, I mean, there are things you like to do more. There are things you like to do less. Coding is amazing when it works, when everything, you press Command R and I don't know, you still have a 404 error or something. It's not fun, but once that bloody website works, it's the best feeling in the world. Whereas maybe book design works in a different pace, and it's nice that it's like a little slower and not so agitating and not frustrating. On the other hand, you can, I don't know, look up all the things you need, all the problems you have. Somebody had already had that question and asked it on Stack Overflow. So you find almost every possible solution for the problem you have in coding, you find it online. So I guess it's just, I don't know, different kinds of tools that I guess we're very happy to be able to offer to a client or to a project.
Super. Fantastic. Has anyone else got any further questions as such?
Andrew?
Well, not necessarily a question. I was just wondering, because you have a couple of self-published projects out there, right? And I think throughout the work, there's a lot of writing involved, and you sort of delve deep into certain content. How does that work? Do you have like a network of writers that you often collaborate with, or are these things that, you know, are provided by the client, or you do it in-house?
Well, I can just only speak for the Apollo thing. That was like, I was just jumping into a pool of cold water because like, all right, we have this nicely designed book, but I mean, is a book really worth something if you don't have a preface discussing why you're republishing pictures that have already been out there for ages? So then you dive into this whole NASA and photography and where it comes from and how it was influenced by, like, I know, cowboys moving westwards and stuff like that. And then you just write it. So we did the writing our own, which is not necessarily the best writing. We have amazing lecturers. At least a small anecdote, which I like to tell about the Apollo 11 book. We were printing this in 2 parts, right? So the one was on Wednesday, there was the colored part, and we printed the silver on part on Friday. So this was this day in between after an intense proofing and correcting and working on the machine. I went home and was like, oh, now I'm going to watch the Apollo 11 movie with Ryan Gosling, right? So because there's this beautiful scene where the air is sucked out, right, and he's descending, and then you hear Neil Armstrong's original voice speaking, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, right? And I'd be like, wait a minute, it's one small step for man. You rush. I mean, my girlfriend was, my now wife was like already asleep, so I rushed to my laptop, was sitting on the toilet, opening and be like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, nobody, like myself, Sven, all our employees at the time that worked with us on the project, the lecturer, the publisher, the editor, and everything else, misread, and it was like one small step for mankind. In the content table, in the column titles, in the chapter title, which meant if that would have been printed and bound, which was like, I mean, it was a really expensive publication printing shop. Like we had a lot of funding, so because the black paper and silver thing was not a really cheap idea. And you could have just taken the book, opened the trash can, throw everything in, and that's it, because I'd be like a total failure on the NASA scale, right? I mean, this is the biggest nightmare that someone from NASA is writing me, like really big fans, like, you have no idea what you published there. Like the imposter syndrome, right? And that would be like the imposter syndrome's worst nightmare. Like you have just published, I don't know, the stupidest book I've ever written and published. Like if you write a Bible and instead of Jesus it says something else, I don't know, like Linus. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing this. So yeah, we do this in-house, but we have, of course, like a really big feedback team. Like,
and I mean, also the publishing house helps at a certain point, that they look over it, especially with both those books being published in English, which is not our like mother language. Of course, they then help and have an English-speaking lecturer. We're also lucky that my wife comes from the United States and also speaks a fair amount of English, so that helps, and I guess that also contributed to those projects, definitely. Yeah.
Interesting. Amazing. That was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end, we're just 2 guys thinking that we can do everything, and hopefully we're getting through with it. I mean, most of the time Sven can actually do those things, but if I'm animating with After Effects, it's like
It's just
2,000 layers.
It's just a little slower, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's like a stop motion movie I'm doing, but yeah.
Maybe one last quick question, but I guess it's more in a general sense, but kind of what inspires you within what you do or what you look at?
Well, that's the same question I've been asked before applying to university, because I'm sitting there, you have all these white professors around you, what inspires? And my answer was like, from an early age on, I mean 18 or 19 after university, after school, I got hooked on printing, right? Like the final outcome when it leaves the print and you can smell the ink and the paper and the bound. And then it's just like, we love visual culture. We're collecting tons of books. I mean, Sven's books collection is huge. Mine is also not very small. And it's just this feeling of creating something from nothing and being paid for. That's really inspiring. Like at some point, I can't really believe that people are actually paying us to have fun all day. I mean, not all the time. It's also painstaking at some points. But I think this is really to be part of this culture that contributes to visual culture, like being part of that and giving your best. That's probably the most inspiring thing. Like, for me.
I think I can maybe add to that saying that I hate being surprised, but I love doing surprises. I sometimes think that that's what this job can be about, like especially in, I don't know, in maybe in book design, you open a page and then something surprising happens, you open the next page and something else surprising happens, and that's pretty cool to be to be in a position where you can actually do that.
Yeah, and like we've written on our website, or in this, Sven said in this talk, it's like working for other human beings. And I mean, we had a lot of projects where you work for people who are very intelligent in the visual language, like artists and architects who have like this idea of what good design is about and so on. But every now and then you have clients who have no idea what your process is, how you get from A to B, what they're paying for and what they're getting at the end. But if these kind of people who have nothing to do with design at the end be like, no, from now on I'm using a designer for that kind of work, that's something amazing. Like if I don't know if I'd rather design the most beautiful artist book in the world, or maybe just do like something in daily use, like
yeah.
Michael Spar, I think, he designed this Nike packaging for the Nike shoe, and be like, oh, it's quite nice to do that. Huh? Everybody knows it. Nobody knows that you did it, but you can say it.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. That was really, really incredible talk. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And I think, on behalf of everyone, we really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for having the opportunity to talk for you, everybody.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Cool. Amazing.
Much appreciated.
Well, have a great day.
Yeah, have a great day.
Have a great rest of your week.
Bye-bye. See you very soon. Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.